welcome back to the Deadline Diary podcast. This is our second episode, and today we're going to talk about three different segments, our takes on the importance of local news.
Yes, but first we're going to start with a new segment called On the Record. So this is going to be our media roundup and recommendations. My first recommendation today is the Good Hang podcast, hosted by Amy Poehler. I started watching this as soon as it came out. I think it's been out for maybe a year now. And I really enjoy her interview style because while it is celebrity interviews and they're like she's usually friends with them, I like how she asks her questions. I would say the one that I was really inspired by and I keep in my interview script of what I like to say came from her show. The episode she had with Carol Burnett, I can't remember what they were talking about, but she was asking about a specific event in her life, I'm sure from the Carol Burnett show.
Yeah.
But she asked the question, and then for the lead into Carol to start talking, she phrased it of just take me there or take me to that time.
Interesting.
And so I was really grabbed by that.
Yeah.
So I tried it in my next interview, and I think that question gave me the strongest quotes.
Yeah.
Because I felt like the interviewee got just sort of comfortable within that question because it felt more conversational and more about oh, what was your experience there, rather than feeling like you have to go through it analytically.
Yeah.
So
it's a way more organic way to be hey, paint me a picture.
Yes.
And then you then get a quote of a painted picture without it being clunky and awkward. I'm gonna try that. I like that.
It worked really well. I've gotten some other inspiration from her as well. I think it's literally a good hang. They're just it's
you're chatting it up.
Yeah. And that's how she makes it feel, is it almost instantly feels conversational. So I highly recommend that for either entertainment or if you also want to brush up on your interview skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need to tune in.
It's so good.
I gotta get with the program. My first recommendation, I actually found on Substack, because we've been doing our essential Substacks, which has actually made me a smarter human being.
It has.
And with the certain amount of free time that I have right now, I've been looking into this. There was a Substack that was talking about accessibility in education and how there is a lack thereof.
Yeah.
And they listed multiple resources, and one was and I think you've heard of it, the MIT Open Courseware database.
Yes.
And you can download college courses from MIT, which is super insanely expensive and prestigious and all of that fun stuff, but you can download some of their courses and take them yourself on your computer. It downloads in some weird zip file, so you do have to be a coding expert to figure out how to do it.
Make sure you have a friend in IT.
Absolutely. But it's really cool once you figure out how to open all the files and do everything. It's really cool because there's a bunch of stuff about, there's engineering courses, there's courses on climate, there's a bunch of art stuff. There's literally something for everybody. That is my first recommendation, is teaching yourself something new via MIT, which nobody...
Free MIT.
Yeah. Who can afford to go to MIT?
Not me. Not I. That reminds me of during the pandemic, I think during lockdown, Harvard, I think it was already a thing, but Harvard had virtual courses that were free or something.
I remember something
that you could get
that.
on your Apple bookshelf. And so I remember being okay, I don't have a STEM brain. I'm not mathematically inclined. Obviously, I can teach myself through a Harvard course basic math. Guys, lockdown brought me to some crazy conclusions.
I can imagine.
And that was probably the craziest.
Yeah, I was not doing that. I was locked into Google Classroom. Sophomore in high
yeah,
school.
no, I was for sure doing that too.
I was not doing Harvard courses, but good on you for doing that.
Probably should have been studying for my AP US history test.
Probably.
Especially because for COVID and other reasons, our teacher was fired. So we never learned how to write a DBQ. That's a document-based question for all of my AP history folks out there.
Wow. My school didn't have AP. Any AP classes.
Oh, okay, for sure. So shout out Texas.
They were not offering. I don't know what the.
They
what
said
was it
your
called?
neighborhood doesn't.
No.
You guys don't make the financial bracket.
No, we did not.
No.
What was it called? What based question?
Document-based question. And there's a specific formula, I guess, to answering it. Maybe formula is not the right way, but I mean, like, there's a specific way that you're supposed to go about writing a document-based question and answer, or all I remember is it's called a DBQ. Y'all, I did not learn how to do it. I didn't learn how to do it. Please go ask somebody else.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so
sounds good.
Shout out free courses.
Shout out.
My second recommendation is 60 Minutes. If you've ever heard of such a thing. If you've ever heard of such a thing. I grew up watching this every Sunday. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure both of my parents grew up watching it every Sunday. So it was always Sunday night football, and then the sounds of the clock ticking, and knowing that I was supposed to be in bed.
Yep.
But I was sitting on the stairs, like a dork.
Of course.
'Cause, yeah, why not? But so I grew up watching that, and I recently started watching it again as I'm packing up my college apartment.
Fabulous. That's a full circle moment.
Oh
honestly.
my god! Why not make a sad moment even sadder by adding some more nostalgia into it?
Of course.
And then on top of that, that weird of like, I just graduated with a journalism degree. I grew up watching 60 Minutes, and now I'm moving out of my like college. It's weird of just like
Twilight Zone moment there.
Truly. But so I recently watched I think it was like an episode from a few weekends ago, but it was a Leslie Stahl segment, and it was on a organization called Healing Justice, and it was basically like a follow-up story 20 years later, because this woman, her name is Jennifer Thompson, she's a rape victim, and so in the early 2000s, oh my gosh, I can't remember exactly what the first coverage was, but basically, she's been interviewed by Leslie Stahl before, and the story from when the, I guess, crime originally occurred to now, so much has happened. So basically, she went to the police, they had a lineup, she picked the person out of the lineup, and they went to court, tried him, the man was found guilty, sent to prison for a long time. And then, she came to find out, along with everybody else, that was not the perpetrator. That guy, he was an innocent man. And what is so interesting, because, like, obviously, of course, we need to, like, focus on exonerees and their stories, because he was exonerated and fully cleared, which is great. And while we do talk about their trauma to a degree, we also don't talk about it enough in general. What I found was interesting, because she brought it up and I had never thought about it because that's how overlooked it is what the victim's experience is. Right. And like she talked about, I felt like a horrible person. I felt so guilty, and then everything came back up again, because while you feel horrible and guilty for sending a guilty person, an innocent person to prison, you're also realizing that, like, the person who actually committed those crimes is still out there. And basically after that, the actual perpetrator of that crime, after he committed that crime, he did it more and was eventually found and whatever. And so then through DNA testing, which is somewhat recent, they realized like that was the wrong guy. Anyway, so the segment talks about how Jennifer got in contact to apologize and to the person she sent to prison. And now they talk, like they go around the country, they talk to like these like police conferences and basically being like, this is why it's important that basically I think the argument is that like the whole concept of having a lineup is often like a failing concept because like in her case the person wasn't even in the lineup at all.
Right.
So you have all you can do is point to the wrong person.
Right.
Especially in trauma cases where you don't remember.
It's like when disasters happen and you can't trust the first-hand accounts because nobody actually knows.
But then it's awful because like there's no other account. Like,
right. That's
and
horrible.
So what do you do? Anyway, she for I think like a long time now, she's been hosting this retreat for both exonerees and victims and families of like family members of victims. And it was like a 3-day retreat. They did all of these activities. They all came out of it having a better understanding of each other. And one of the there was a woman, one of the victims, she had a conversation with one of the exonerees, and she had said to Leslie Stahl of just like, yeah, I basically still haven't forgiven myself. Wow. I just, it's awful.
Yeah. And
she feels like stuck in the moment. She says she relives it every day still. And so she basically was like starting to ask, and they got it on camera, like they got the interaction on camera, starting to ask the one of the men who was exonerated, she was basically like, do you ever feel angry towards the person who wrongfully, and he like cut her off basically. He was like, it's not your fault. Like, you didn't know, basically. And just this really, like, healing conversation. It made me cry. Oh, and I don't really cry at these, like, I don't cry at a lot of things like that. But that made me cry, and it also made me, like, it's really dorky, but I love journalism. Yeah. Because how amazing, because I learned so many new things and was just moved.
That's my dog coughing.
Shout out Bobus.
Anyways.
But yeah, so I recommend that segment specifically, but 60 Minutes altogether is just
always
a must watch. They cover so many different things in such a fascinating way. So,
yeah.
While we still have it, watch it.
My last recommendation of this segment, this book, The Fate of Food, it was published in 2019, so I mean it's not a new book, but Amanda Little is a Vanderbilt professor and award-winning journalist. She wrote this beautiful story but trying to answer the question of whether or not we're going to be able to feed all of the people in the world sustainably in the coming decades.
Interstellar.
Like the biggest question people are asking in terms of food access and all of this stuff. And if you're into anything like environmental reporting, anything like that, this has genuinely made me so much smarter. And it's just a wonderful narrative. It's a really well told story. She went to Norway and was on a salmon boat, and she went and was apple picking in Wisconsin. She went to a bunch of states, and then she went to 11 or 13 countries and talked to so many different types of people, engineers, scientists.
There are so some many twists and turns in
there's
book,
there's some twists and turns. Someone she was speaking with in China, she like couldn't find him for a little bit. He like disappeared. And it was a whole thing, but it's really, really well written. The narrative's beautiful. Shout out Amanda Little for this wonderful book.
She did her big one.
This was her big one. The fate of food. That is my last recommendation.
Okay, so let's start with talking news deserts.
Let's do it.
I recently learned that this is more of a journalism jargon term.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'll explain it. So it's basically like an evolving definition to keep up with the industry's consolidations of local newspapers. Typically, they're bought out by bigger legacy media groups. So it once only referred to rural areas that lost or never had a local news outlet within the town or even the county. And it's now, that definition has now been expanded to suburban areas as well, because just in total, newsrooms are declining, which is really sad because local news, like, it offers the most credible and comprehensive, and typically like the first reports most of the time. And so if you lose this, you're losing information being gathered at a grassroots level, which, just like in politics, journalism, the grassroots level is really important because that's where everything starts. So in a good local newspaper, they can show their audience how national news impacts them, you know?
Yeah, before I moved to Denton, I lived in a small town. So I'm from a news desert. We didn't have a paper
Me as well.
in our small town. We had a paper in, like, the closest, biggest town. There was a lot of broadcast news. But there was no, like, daily digital paper that people read all the time. They would just watch their news in the morning. Whatever it was for the town, 2 towns over, was the news everybody got. Granted, when there's so many people that live in a town, like, you kind of know everything that happens because you all talk to each other. But there's still no actual credible form of obtaining information besides what you get 2 towns over. And then the town right over is a teeny tiny paper. Literally 3 people work there. Not to say that is not good local journalism.
It's
it absolutely
hard
can be. It is difficult. It is very, very difficult to have comprehensive coverage when 3 people work at your paper. That you can't be everywhere all at once.
What is that workflow even?
I cannot even imagine.
Stressed for them.
I cannot even imagine. But that, of course, is inspiration for why I want to do what I want to do. I mean, I
bridge that gap.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I see that. And I think a lot of local news, aside just from, like, gathering and producing and then, like, sharing important information, it does also, it kind of binds a community together as well, because I mean, I also grew up in a news desert, so we never had this, but both of my, like, parents and my grandparents saved old newspapers, and there's, like, stuff with, like, our family members in it getting recognized for random little things and stuff like that. And so, I mean, that was another reason why people would go out and just, like, and read these newspapers of who, like, oh, who in my community? Like, I wonder if I'll spot anybody.
Know.
Yeah. And so, and even the, like, most classic community, like, based column in a newspaper is the obit. And so, where does the obit go now? And so, I mean,
that is a very sad thought.
And that's like a small problem. That's not like a pressing issue in journalism per se, but it is something that I do think is it's contributing to the decline of a community that we're feeling.
I mean, absolutely. I wouldn't say it's a small problem. I would say, like,
the obits.
Like, I thought you meant. Okay,
no.
I see.
News deserts are a big problem.
Like, okay, wait a minute.
No, losing some obits is, not to sound insensitive, that's a smaller problem, less pressing issue.
In comparison To a news.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me lock in.
Hey, no, let me lock in.
I was like, wait a minute.
That's a horrible. If I worded it like that, that's horrible.
But the fact that a lot of local papers, like, there's so much oversight. I don't want to be the one, like, that goes and says that.
Yeah.
But a lot of really great accountability journalism comes out of local papers who are seeing stuff happen in their local city government.
It's because they're probably hearing, like,
Absolutely.
You're so entrenched in the community. Like, how could you not know do your job?
Yes, absolutely. And often local governments, are underfunded, and they are trying to figure out what to do with so much money and all this stuff, and the turnover rate for people in office, especially in small towns, they change all the time, so nobody knows who's running the city council, anything like that. And if you don't have a local paper, nobody's reporting on it either. So how do you know?
Accountable if they're being shady?
And a lot of that really, really great stuff comes out of small papers like that.
Much.
So it is definitely sad to see that is happening, and has been happening forever.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting to see how that will continue.
Yeah.
Because, try to be hopeful, and journalism is, I think we're seeing that journalism is incredibly important right now.
Yeah.
I don't even necessarily think that it matters which side you're on. Like, journalism matters to everybody. Everybody needs credible journalism. I'm also personally tired of having sides of journalism. Yeah, I'm so over it. I think some of it is also, like, a little bit of a myth. I think some of it is media literacy, but that's why it's important to teach media literacy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But like you were saying earlier, how local news shows, like, immediate local impact, without having those small local papers that 5 journalists who work really, really hard day in and day out work at. Everybody then has to rely on national news and big news media that is not on purpose, but it kind of overlooks that.
Yeah. If you don't have someone there, impact. Like, you can't help but overlook.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you have to zoom out and give it on a wider scale for the bigger landscape that you're covering, because you can't be so localized.
Yeah. And typically the landscapes that are covered are, like, major metropolitans, and will continue to be as like, legacy media and news buys everyone out. Shout out. So less local news means there's going to be a big impact for everybody. Scholars have actually reported that on average 85% of daily news is produced by local news outlets.
I believe that.
And so as we're losing more local news outlets, obviously we're going to lose more local news, and smaller newsrooms means fewer, like, watchdogs on the scene, watchdog journalism. And the less accountability reporting, the more possibility for corruption.
Absolutely.
And so that's why, like, local news is so important, even for, like, the national level.
Yeah.
Because you're keeping everybody accountable. Or at least that's the goal. And because all of these newsrooms are being bought out, consolidated, we're seeing a lot of newsrooms switching to different models. So a major one is a nonprofit model. However, nonprofit models are, because they're 501c3s, they're tax exempt. And if you're tax exempt, you can't endorse any political candidates. To be honest, I don't know how I feel about that, because I don't have a strong, like, opinion that outlets should be able to endorse candidates, especially in, like, this era of news, because it would be lovely to see less politically charged news and just reporting.
That is an interesting question. I think everything everything that people read
Mm-hmm.
these days,
Yeah.
that sounds, these days,
Yeah.
they already think is,
Politically.
yeah.
Yeah.
They feel like anything reported on a certain side, whether it's
Mm.
whichever, feels like it is an endorsement to
Yeah.
one side or the other. So I think it's not necessarily a bad thing,
Mm.
but then when we're talking about it in terms of people who have to rely on nonprofit news because they don't have local news, and so they're looking towards big regional nonprofits,
Mm.
it is kind of a disservice to them. But if the reporting is done well enough, and if it's really factual and it's straight down the middle, it's nonpartisan, then the reader should be able to make an opinion for themselves. Oliver wants to switch chairs.
So while we're seeing more nonprofit models emerge, it also feels like we're seeing more media monopolies. And while actual monopolies are illegal in the U.S., there's a very close second that is legal. It's an oligopoly.
I see.
So they don't have a like complete market cornered. They just share like control with a few other large companies, and they control the market together. And that's what we're seeing a lot in journalism, and that's what's contributing to the news desert, less local news, because these big media companies, which, can I name drop this one? Hearst Media. Shout out Hearst Media. They own a lot of news. I mean, they own like Elle Magazine.
Oh, you listed like a bunch of these earlier.
Yeah, they own over 30 U.S. magazines, 30 daily newspapers, 35 television stations. Some of their magazines and digital brands, which I didn't know how much they owned. I knew what they owned in Texas.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't realize this was like all over the country. They own Cosmopolitan. They own Elle and Esquire, Men's Health. But this is the same company that also owns the Houston Chronicle, the Midland Report Telegram, Philadelphia Inquirer. They also have significant ownership stakes in the A&E channel, History Channel, Lifetime Channel, and ESPN. And so it's just crazy to see, like, could you imagine going back and talking to, like, Edward R. Murrow and being like, hey, this is what, like, this is what journalism looks like. I mean, even the, like, older generation of current journalists, even they're, like, a little gobsmacked about what we're seeing.
Fun word.
Love gobsmacked. Been thinking about it all day. Have actually been waiting to use it. My big moment has arrived.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy how much media is owned by one large company. And there's still a few other companies that own, like, I'm sure just as much.
Absolutely. Hearst was definitely the best example, like, for everybody here in our area, because, I mean, you hear so much. Like, I'm sure probably everybody who just graduated applied to at least one Hearst newsroom.
Oh, yeah, whether they knew it or not.
Whether they knew it or not.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about.
I applied to one outside of the state, and I didn't realize before I hit apply that they were owned by Hearst, but then it took me to the Hearst, like, application page, and I was like, I've been here before. This is crazy.
Here before. That does definitely show, like, a certain level of research needs to be done about the media you're taking in, because you don't know who it's owned by.
Yeah. Even by potential, like, employees of this company. So learning that, I was like, okay, there's now another level of research I need to do.
Absolutely. My biggest example of why every journalist has that, like, local journalism matters ingrained to them, like literally stitched to their soul.
I have a sweatshirt that I got at a journalism conference.
Stitched to their soul.
Yes.
But I recently went to Oklahoma City. I was there for just a weekend trip, and we went to the National Memorial. The Oklahoma City Museum is a memorial of the 1995 bombing, and the experience I had while I was there, I've been to like a bunch of museums. It's never like super emotional for me, and I was like overwhelmed with emotion and I guess passion while I was there.
Yeah.
Because it's put together chronologically, which is like the best way to design a museum, in my personal opinion.
For all the museum curators
for
out there,
all the curators,
this girl prefers
I have a
chronological.
preference.
So
I have a preference.
yes.
But the bombing took place April 19th on the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, and it was about 9:01 or I think 9:03 a.m. And the first like few rooms you go into in the museum is like the time difference between 9 a.m. and 9:03 a.m.
Oh,
it's crazy.
that sounds chilling.
It is, and it's 3 minutes, and there's like accounts of people on their way to work or sitting down at their desk and stuff like. It is just absolutely insane. Wow. And the bombing was the first act of or worst act. I don't know if it's the first.
I think it might be the first.
I think so.
You
we're
keep
gonna fact
going
check and get back to you.
Yeah.
Definitely the worst act of homegrown terrorism. 168 people, 19 of which were children.
Yes, because there was a childcare.
A daycare center.
Yes.
Right.
Wow.
On, I don't know if it was the first floor, but closest to the truck that blew up was a daycare center.
Wow.
And the building that houses the museum was the Journal Record building where the paper worked. And there's probably more now. There's two major Oklahoma papers that reported on the bombing the day of and following the entire response, which is the Daily Oklahoman and the Journal Record. And the Journal Record building was partially destroyed. There's behind glass in the museum is filing cabinets, notebooks, briefcases from inside the office where they were impacted by the explosion and ran across the street to cover the bombing. And it is just, it's overwhelming to think about. And
that's like passion and dedication.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of them were injured, probably most of them were injured, and it's just crazy to think about.
And then aside from that, the like mental impact that
absolutely
that has to have.
And that's something I want to talk about when we get to it. The museum is so well put together, and the importance this has where it links it to local journalism for me is the catalog and the recount that was done so well in a moment where it was pure chaos to the point where there could be so much taken away from it after the fact and framed in a museum.
Wow.
The response was overwhelming. They searched for people in the building for 4 days before it turned rather from rescue to recovery. And there's so many accounts in there. Journalists were there all day, every day, until it was over. Yeah. And they stood with families and they talked to families while they were looking for their loved ones. And it was just, I think I did shed a few tears, but I definitely almost sobbed in there. The most, like, kind of bone-chilling thing was there is, other than, of course, the lives lost and how emotional and sad that was.
Yeah.
Once you get past learning about the actual explosion and how it was done and the mechanisms in the truck and all of that stuff that they teach you at the beginning of the museum, you get to the next day and the front page comes out. Print publication, front page comes out, and there's I can't remember which publication it was, whether it was the Daily Oklahoman or the Journal Record, or one of the other ones. I believe it was the Daily Oklahoman. But
that sounds right.
Yeah. They put out on their front page, they had a humongous photo, of course, of the building. And Finley, can you please get down?
Censoring.
They had their front page came out, big photo of the building, and every story on it was a first-hand account of different editors at the paper.
Wow.
And which is, I can't imagine the editorial choice you have to make to do that. And I don't know whether it was they couldn't, I don't know if I trust first-hand accounts of witnesses right now because it's the first day. We can trust ourselves because we were there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the choice or if it was genuinely to show that average, everyday people were on their way to work when when devastation struck.
Even though,
Yeah.
Even those who have to cover it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there was one where the first-hand account was an editor who was up all night editing a story to go on that issue, to go on that front page that they then had to write a story the whole next day to go onto it. They were up too late editing it, and they didn't wake up on time to go to work, and their life was possibly saved. They were possibly saved from harm's way, and because they were late to work. And that's like such a human thing, is, I was editing for too long and I overslept and now I have to be late to covering this and everybody's already there. So it was just crazy to read that kind of like human moment that happened. But the response, the coverage of the trial, all of that would not have been able to be as cataloged as it was if it was not put down on paper and done with immense calmness, like steadfast ethics in the moment, all while this crazy thing has happened.
Nightmare situation.
Nightmare scenario.
Yeah, that's insane. This is when I get really interested into like the psychology of journalists, because I think there is something, and I don't know what it is about us, there's something, maybe it's a coping mechanism of like, okay, journalism instincts kicked in. I'm going to ignore the fact that I probably need to not be doing this right now. I need to focus on me. I'm going to go ahead and ignore that for greater good and cover this story. It's just insane how many different cases of that there are, because especially with coverage of 9/11, which was, I mean, rightfully so, like very expansive. Yeah. And a lot of, like, there's just so many stories of journalists and then just other, like, New Yorkers being like, oh, well, I was going to do this, but then, like, I just had this gut feeling and whatever. It's just so crazy to hear those stories. Yeah. And you would never hear them if it weren't for journalism.
You said gut feeling, and it reminded me, there's it's one of the very first exhibits in that museum, is another front page. They have really, there's a lot of front page issues, and they show you multiple of them, but they want to show you what made it onto the cover of different outlets, and so it looks really, really cool. But one of the very first one was actually from 2 years before the bombing, where a student journalist at SMU interviewed Timothy McVeigh in Waco.
Whoa.
Yes. And it was in Waco, 51-day standoff, and he was there. And he wasn't involved, but there was a big row of people and bystanders came by, and
that's insane.
It was, I had goosebumps all over my entire body.
Oh my god, I can't imagine being that student journalist, and then the Oklahoma incident happens, and then you put the dots together.
Later. And her name was Michelle Rausch. I hope I'm saying that last name wrong. Or wrong? I hope I'm saying it right. Let me
That'd
fix
be the goal.
There we go. I hope I'm not saying it wrong. But she interviewed McVeigh, and he was the main source in her story, probably because of the quotes he said. He expressed immense
he's an expressive person.
Yes, very angry at the government. His quotes were
journalist dream, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. The anger literally just came off the page. But there was something, she had some sort of gut feeling, I'm sure, probably, that made her keep him the highlight of the story that was about something completely separate.
Wow.
And he was just there as a bystander. 2 years later, he would then blow up a federal building.
That's insane. And it might get, like,
Chilling.
I'm literally
A student
speechless.
journalist. Speechless.
Like, that kind of makes you wonder, like,
That is
I
stuck
just
with
love
me.
journalism because,
I know.
like, now you get possibly even more insight into that man's mind of, okay, well, why was he at the Waco, like, standoff?
Right.
Was he there because it intrigued him? And what about
Right.
it intrigued him? You know?
It was crazy.
Wow.
I have not been able to forget anything that I saw in there since I left. And they have a logbook. After you make it, it's 2 floors, and then they show you a little bit of the archives, which no museum does, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
And there's like a logbook where you write your name, and I was talking the whole time. I was so kind of grateful that I got to see this through the lens of a journalist,
Yeah.
where it was kind of like a journalism museum to me.
Yeah.
And in a way that does not take away from the fact that it was devastation. So many lives were lost. It was very sad, and I was very sad the whole time because of that. But I got to see it with immense importance for what the profession is.
Yeah.
And I signed the logbook, and I wrote, there's a comment section, I literally wrote local journalism matters in the comments, because it's all I could think.
Yeah.
Because if they weren't there, if they didn't walk across the street and be there within probably 10 minutes after they dug rubble off of themselves getting out of their office, they were the first people there.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story.
Could you imagine, like,
for such a devastating event.
yeah, like that guy probably wouldn't have been apprehended as soon as
Possibly.
He was, because he was,
Who knows?
I mean, yeah.
That was a long process. Or not long, but took a few days. But
Yeah.
And that is another thing. There's like a whole section, there's floor 1 of the response, the bombing, the actual event, and then there's so much of the court case, and covering the actual trial and everything like that. And they used, and I didn't know this process existed, and I don't know if it still does. I'll have to look into that. But there was 2 people that got to cover his he was on death row.
Yeah.
And so he was put to death. And they put all these journalists from different outlets that put their names into the lottery, and they used a lottery system to see who was going to cover the day he was put to death.
Ooh, there's something so dystopian about
Oh,
that.
absolutely. It was so
Whoa.
crazy. And I can't remember the outlets. It was, I know a male reporter and a female reporter both won the lottery to go cover that. Can you imagine? You're excited, your outlet gets this exclusive thing, and it's that.
A man being put
Yeah.
to death. Guilty and
Of course.
horrible, but it's still like, it's that weird thing you see in journalism too of, and maybe some of it is sort of necessary for the job and what we do, but there's a lot of desensitizing.
Yeah.
And while still understanding the impact and the seriousness, there's almost a switch that sort of has to happen of like, I'm just going to look at everything factual.
Yep.
And like, that's how I'm going to get through this. And so
Absolutely.
it's interesting to see how that has also led to certain areas of journalism rightfully being scrutinized for being insensitive.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Would you ever cover somebody in prison? Like,
I mean,
whether or not on death row or...
absolutely.
Yeah.
The covering the actual death would be interesting in a way that I don't know, like, what I would react to.
Yeah, I think I would still do it. Take that opportunity. Which
You would
sounds
still do
horrible.
it. You would definitely still do it.
But I
just don't know how I would react afterward.
not great.
Like,
I'd need a few PTO
yeah,
days.
definitely
Not
need
that
a
we
few days
really
off.
get those, but
But
I would love to request some after that.
absolutely. It was crazy though. Like they had like notepads like framed in like exhibits, and it was like I can't imagine any journalist would ever give that up, if they would give their notepad
Whoa.
to a museum.
Yeah.
I mean, if a museum asked to frame your notepad, you're going to say yes, probably, actually. But I would want to keep it.
I'd be inclined to keep it, too.
And it was like, they were so sad. Like, it was, and you know you can't read journalist handwriting, but you had to, like, stand there for minutes trying to decipher what they were saying. And they would write, like, the name of the victim who was hurt, and they'd write down their injury, they'd say, and they'd quote their experience, and
that's insane. They were probably jumping from person
to person as they were being cared for by EMTs, by law enforcement, being questioned and everything like that.
Wow.
And they were writing down how injured they were and getting quotes from them and asking what floor they were on so that they could have an account of what floors everything happened on. And it was just...
That definitely is a hard part of the job.
Yeah.
Because who wants to go up and bother people in, like, peril?
Yeah.
And while you're also probably in peril.
A lot of them looking for their children they couldn't find because
Yeah.
they had kids in the daycare center.
I'll say there's a really good documentary, and I can't remember the name of it now, but we can put it in here.
Yeah.
But there's a great documentary that I watched on it, and it really did go into the part about, like, the parents looking for their children, and one woman who was interviewed, her child sadly died in the bombing, and, like, it's so insane because she was talking about her experience with journalists at that time and what her experience with them now talking about it is, and it's so interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll put the name of that in here. I recommend, if you're ever in Oklahoma City, it is worth the time, worth the trip over.
I mean, driving, like, home to where, like, I'm from, I go through Oklahoma City, and you told me about that, and I was like, I'm going home soon, like, I might make a stop.
Absolutely. They have the museum and the actual memorial where the federal building stood before they demolished it, and they have these chairs. They look like chairs, and they light up, and they have names of each of the victims who passed away, and they have, like, these two big like sides of a building, and they're, like, built up like big bricks, and they have big clocks on them, and they're stopped at the time that the bomb was detonated.
Oh my God.
And it's overwhelming.
Wow.
Like, you will not know how to feel in there. Wow. I still don't know how to feel after that.
I'll have a long drive after that to process
You'll drive
those
in silence,
feelings.
no music.
And that'll be the first time that ever happens.
Absolutely.
But it most definitely will happen, I'm sure. Thank you for watching our second episode of the Deadline Diary podcast, and there will be more soon.
There will be more soon.
Take that as a threat or a promise. Up to you.
Yes. Very well.
Yeah. Nice. Ready? 3. Trigger warning noise. 3, 2, 1.
That was so much better than last time. High five. Freeze